I'm Evan Dean in Matlacha, where the main question with this storm is, will it impact access to Matlacha and to Pine Island? Right behind me is the Little Pine Island Bridge. This was destroyed by Hurricane Ian 2 years ago and is down to one lane as crews work to rebuild it. The contractor spent time reinforcing it today ahead of the storm, but will also need time to inspect it after the storm before allowing access again. That means there could be no access to Pine Island after Milton, depending on how bad it is. It is quiet here in Matlacha tonight. Many people are heeding the evacuation order here. One couple that's been here for decades and has never left, not even for Ian, told me they are getting out. We also found a man who lives in an RV on Matlacha. He was trying to find someone to help him pull it to the mainland before Milton strikes. The Lee County Sheriff is urging people in evacuation zones to leave tonight and get to a safe place. Deputies will not be able to respond to emergency calls once the storm gets too severe. Back to you.
The only way to get on and off that island, very empty. We want to get back out to Evan Dean. He is out on Pine Island showing us how people are preparing. Evan, it looks pretty empty around there.
Yes, empty is the word tonight, Megan. Good evening to you. We are at the 7-Eleven in the heart of Pine Island, a 24-hour store that is shut down. And really, like you said, it feels like much of the island is shut down. We drove up and down Stringfellow from Bokeelia to St. James City and really only passed a few cars over several miles there. You know, we did see some people with lights on at the homes, but it seems that many people are heeding the evacuation order and are getting out before Milton moves in. Here's some video from Matlacha. This was a little bit earlier, also quiet, almost eerie there as well. We spoke with a couple that had been here for decades, and they say they never leave. They didn't even leave during Ian, and they were getting out of town. Now, we did find one woman planning to ride out the storm. Her home is brand new, finished after Ian. It's 8.5 feet above the water level, so she says that's why she's staying despite the evacuation order. When you hear that and they're begging people to get out, what's the thought?
The way I look at that is if I were at 4 feet, 5 feet, I would understand it. This is truly built to every possible code. We're still going to watch it, and if things get really crazy, we'll probably leave tomorrow.
How about this? This is some drone footage of the Publix on Pine Island, just down the road from us here. No, it's not open, but it is still serving a big purpose. It is full of RVs and boats that have been parked here. The lot here is well elevated. People know that it's well elevated, and people are hoping this can help their belongings avoid the storm surge that we are expecting. Back here live, one more note. The water has been turned off in Matlacha now. That was done because to protect the causeway in the event of any sort of water main break. So certainly we're hoping that there aren't any issues with the causeway or the bridges. We know there were issues with Ian, and hoping that we don't have any problems with them this time around. Back to you.
John, thank you. Let's take a live look now at the Matlacha Bridge. It is calm right now. We know this is going to get a big test, though, in about 24 hours. This bridge, part of it washed away during Hurricane Ian, and we're going to find out real quick if all the efforts to fortify it over the past couple of years will work.
Definitely. Our Evan Dean has been following a lot out on Pine Island since Hurricane Ian and continues for us during our coverage of Hurricane Milton. Evan, how is it out there tonight?
Yeah, Megan and Peter, good evening. We are at the 7-Eleven in the heart of Pine Island, which is a 24-hour store, but not so tonight. It is shut down, and to be frank, much of the island feels shut down tonight. We drove up and down Stringfellow from really St. James City to Bokeelia earlier tonight and passed just a handful of cars. There were some people with lights on at their homes, but for the most part, it is clear people are moving out before Milton moves in.
I'm surprised the number of people that have left, and I'm glad they left. I mean, we have a lot of low-lying homes here.
Most of Catherine Jennings' neighbors in Matlacha have left for the mainland ahead of Milton. She's among the few planning to ride it out here. Her home is brand new, finished after Ian, and 8.5 feet above the water. That's why she's staying, she said, despite a mandatory evacuation order. When you hear that and they're begging people to get out, what's the thought?
The way I look at that is if I were at 4 feet, 5 feet, I would understand it. This is truly built to every possible code. We're still going to watch it, and if things get really crazy, we'll probably leave tomorrow.
Evacuations aren't the only concern. So too is access to the island. Today, crews reinforced the Little Pine Island Bridge, which is being rebuilt after Ian destroyed it. And water has been turned off in Matlacha to prevent any damage to the causeway if a water main breaks. Over on Pine Island, the Publix parking lot has turned into a makeshift storage area. People hoping the higher ground can spare their boats and RVs.
Right where we're standing right now, water was to here. And this one's going to be double that.
Timothy Sepulvado told us he is planning to evacuate. He remembers Helene's hit to Matlacha a couple weeks ago and didn't mince words about what he fears Milton might bring.
I mean, you get caught in Matlacha or any like lower island like this, you're dead.
The question and really raised the question of what are those bridges over in Matlacha going to look like. Hopefully they don't suffer like they did during Ian, but regardless of whether there's damage or not, crews that are working in that area and have been working on the rebuild since Ian, they're going to want to inspect those areas before they let people back onto the island or off the island after the storm. So you could expect there's at least going to be some access lost to the island if the storm brings major water to this area. Back to you. I'm Evan Dean walking the main drag in Matlacha, and we had two main questions for this area ahead of Hurricane Milton. Number one, would people heed that mandatory evacuation order issued by the county? I'll tell you what, it has been awfully quiet in Matlacha today, quiet down the road in St. James City and Bokeelia, and most of the people we've spoken to say they do plan to evacuate or already have evacuated ahead of Milton. And on the main drag here, you can see a lot of businesses looking just like this. Obviously very quiet in the middle of the night, but they've got sandbags at the doors and they're preparing for the storm surge that Milton could bring. The other question that we have ahead of Milton is just how well are the bridges going to hold up leading into Matlacha and then into Pine Island? We don't have an answer for that one just yet. We know that both sides of Matlacha were washed out after Hurricane Ian. We certainly don't want to see that again. But if you look behind me here, you could see that this road right here, there's this light up here. That's because Little Pine Island Bridge is actually down to one lane. That's because crews are actually rebuilding the bridge after it was devastated by Ian, and FDOT said that crews today worked to reinforce and strengthen that bridge ahead of Milton. We've also were told that what they're going to do is after the storm, they're going to need to inspect the bridges for debris, for any issues. So at some point after Milton passes, you can expect crews to be not only inspecting the bridge here, but also the causeway down on the other end and the bridge down at the other end as well. So at some point, we expect some sort of closed off access, no access to Pine Island and Matlacha, but how long that will be after the storm was going to depend on just how bad the damage is here. Back to you.